Alright guys, happy Labor Day. Did a nice video with Sophia doing the camera work, finishing up the setting the load on the GT40P heads. She sent it all to herself, and as soon as she gets back to college she will edit that together and show it to you guys. But I figured I'd do a quickie today. This is actually the intake that I want to use for the nasty 331 project that's running the Sportsman 2s that flow about 300 CFM. So that'll be a high RPM race motor with the cheap crap parts. And this intake fits right into that scheme. Now, this is actually my vote for the baddest dual plane intake manifold you can get for a small block Chevy. This is actually a cast iron copy of the DZ302 and LT1 aluminum intake. There are several differences, though. This one is drilled and has the plenum design. You could use a quadrajet on it. The DZ302 LT1 intake is Holly only. It also has a fully divided plenum, whereas the DZ302 LT1 is recessed a little bit. It also has different plenums. I don't know if you guys can see that, but even the upper plenum is massive. The lower plenum is huge. Okay? It's a very tall manifold. And it's iron, so it weighs I think it's about 39.5 pounds. If you want the number on it, 242 Bowtie. They stopped producing this about 2012. They came on a lot of marine engines, which is where this one came from. So the first thing you need to look at when you're buying these is how much corrosion you have here. It took me almost an hour to machine this down to get all nice new fresh metal. Yeah, I'll have to put the thermostat in with a bit of RTV, but that doesn't bother me any. It is iron, so most of the threaded holes will be in good shape unless somebody was really gorillaing it. And this is a spot that seems to be problematic. I've had a few of these that were cracked here and had to weld them. That was, you can see I hit this with the longboard when I was making this able to be used. Another thing you need to check for corrosion in the water jackets. If it was a saltwater cooled engine, these may be totally rotted out and the manifold may not be usable. Okay? The one thing I don't like about this intake is it doesn't have a huge amount of extra meat above and below the ports. That does limit to what you can do to it, but it's already a big nasty intake. This did have a heat shield on it. All right, that keeps your exhaust heat separated from the engine oil heat. You're going to run a race engine, these are going to be blocked anyway, right? So it helps keeps the intake manifold a little bit cooler. There'd be questions like, why would you run a cast iron manifold on a race engine? Well, yeah, it is heavier. In reality, I think that's the only disadvantage of iron. Remember, it transfers heat at a much less rate than aluminum does. So your intake charge actually stays cooler, right? A lot of guys don't think about that. Part of me wants to take this 39.5 pound monster and do some weight reduction on it. I mean, you could literally grind 100 thousandths of iron off of this thing everywhere and it would still be completely functional. Yeah, that would be a huge amount of work. I'm not going to do that for this project, but a piece of me wants to do that. These were also used a lot in oval track. When the rules specified you had to run a cast iron intake, this is the intake you want to run. There is no other GM intake that even comes close. except for the LT1 that I can think of. Dual plane. How does it compare to a Performer RPM? I don't have any RPMs in stock, but if you take a look, I do have that one Holly, which is very similar to the Edelbrock Performer as far as big runner, small runner design. This, all the runners are almost identical in size. Okay, it may not be that easy to see. Hold on. It's actually so dirty and rusty, I can't, even shining light through the ports, can't really see a whole lot. It'll look a lot different once I port it. But you can see they're generous. Now, what I want to do, and not that you can do a huge amount to the runners, you can enlarge them a little bit, but it's not like I'm going to be welding dividers or anything into this. I'm not going to do that because I don't think it needs it. I mean, if you notice, right, these curves, nice gentle curves. This is a nice design. This is a little tight here. Right, that curve right there could use some work. Let's take a look at the upper plenum. Okay. This runner here comes into our upper plenum, so this has got a nice curve going in. This is also upper plenum, right? It's got a nice curve going in. Same thing here, nice curve. This one's a little bit steeper. It comes around this way and down. As far as the plenum itself, right, this edge will get machined out. These lumps and bumps here will be taken out. Depending upon how I feel, these will definitely get radiused. It actually feels like somebody did work on this one at some point because it's not a sharp edge. Usually these are sharp edges to shear fuel, okay? But they don't help horsepower. So, and this plenum is harder to get air and fuel in and out of because it's not as deep, okay? This one you have more area for the fuel and air to organize and then turn into the runner. This sharp edge, I'm thinking of actually keeping because radiusing it out right there probably will not help. And this one I probably will because it'll give it a little bit better angle to get into that bottom runner. So let's take a look at how this flowed completely stock, full of rust and filthy. I did have a mistake. I forgot to put in my runner plug. I had to machine it down to make it even fit on the bench. So these three flows were no good. Okay? So we've got lower runner, upper, upper, lower, upper, lower, lower, upper. So it's a standard dual H pattern. Okay? Cylinder 1 was 244.3. Trying to think what we got out of the Holly with the big runners. It was right about that. Okay? And those are the lower runners. So the lower runners on this, I should say, this lower runner, lower, lower. All right, the worst lower runner, which is this one, still flowed as good as the big runner and that Holly that I have. Now, how will this compare to a Performer RPM? There's a bunch of things I actually like better about this intake manifold than the RPM. Yeah, the RPM's runners are designed with a little bit sharper turn right here, which probably has advantages. I'll give it that. But as far as area and design, I'm still thinking this is a better design. Okay, our uppers, we got 259, 246. Number 5 is not great. Well, I'll have to look at that. 254, 243. That's not good either. But if you take a look at all of them, right? 244, 259, 246, 253, 254, 249, 255, 243. As far as I can remember, that is the closest I've ever seen any dual plane come as far as flows, upper and lower H. Now, yeah, I don't have all this right in front of me, so you'd have to look back on some of my older intake manifolds videos and get the specs and let me know if I'm wrong. But I wanted to show you guys before on this. I just cleaned up the pads, did the threads, took the old gaskets and stuff off of it. I would say this has probably been sitting rusting for quite a while before I got my hands on it, but critical spots are still in really good shape, so I picked it up. I also picked it up for a little bit less than they're going online. Online, they're usually about $200 to buy and almost $100 to ship. So they're still a very pricey piece. If you keep your eyes open, once in a while they'll come up for sale. Maybe the guy doesn't know exactly what they are or doesn't care, just wants it out of his garage, and you can get it at a good price. The only disadvantage of this intake that I can tell is it's heavy. That's it. Other than that, it's an excellent design. You disagree with me? Let me know in the comments, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.